March meeting on March 18th, hereby called to order. And we will have roll call.
Major White. Here. Dr. Sadat. Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Mendoza-Locke. Ms. Howe.
Here.
Ms. Harding. Here. Ms. Friedman.
Here.
Dr. Elha. Here. Ms. Clark. Here. Ms. Carter. Mr. Brown.
Here.
Ms. Bell.
Here.
Ms. Banks. Mr. Arnold.
Here.
Mr. Albright.
Okay, we have 10. It's quorum. Now we'll recognize our visitors. Begin with Richard. Thank you very much. The determination of items to be removed from the consent agenda as follows. The meeting minutes, February the 18th. Treasurer's report, January fiscal year 25, financial statements, authorization of temporary drop below minimum fund balance.
That needs to be pulled.
And the health officer's designation, smart care future payments, and fiscal year annual report. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda with exclusion of 60, authorization to temporary drop below minimum fund balance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Roll call vote.
Mr. Albright.
Only those that are here.
Mr. Arnold.
Here. Yes.
Ms. Banks.
Yes.
Ms. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Dr. Elha. Yes. Ms. Friedman.
Yes.
Ms. Harding.
Yes.
Ms. Howe. Dr. Sadat.
Yes.
Major White.
Yes.
Lisa Banks.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes. All right, now Scott will address 6.
Okay, 6B. We requested we pull this from the consent agenda because it's simply no longer needed. Shortly after our meeting, we received a little bit over $11 million in property tax levy funds that were posted to our account. So we're fine. We're not going to go below our minimum fund balance. So we no longer need that. There's no action that needs to be taken by this board. We're not presenting it. It hasn't been a motion, so it doesn't need to be presented.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
All right, we'll move on to number 7, Elijah, path agreement expansion.
All right, good afternoon. So each year, the state requires that we sign an agreement between NPI and the state for the PATH project. This is part of their larger application to the feds to fund PATH, which is the homelessness outreach program. We noticed this year that it is requiring that we authorize a certain amount in the agreement, so we needed to bring it to you for approval to get that. So we do a 1-to-3 match for PATH, and that amount is up to, you can see that in the motion and down there, to 59,888. I will say that, so the state has to apply for these funds, so they're in their application process. Who knows? Who knows? So depending on how much they get, that amount could be less. But we have an application that'll be up to that amount that will be our match to the 1 to 3. We understand that, and you'll remember that NPI is currently with a 120-day notice for PATH because of the correction action plan the state has put them on. The state has said that they believe that, and we believe that NPI will be able to fulfill the corrective action plan, so that will be resolved. But we will add an addendum to this with the state's permissions that gives us kind of an out if the corrective action plan doesn't get resolved. But again, we have faith that it will be getting resolved. We've been meeting with the state and NPI regularly just to monitor what's going on, learn about their strategies to kind of increase their outreach and getting more people connected to mental health resources. So you'll see in the motion in the middle of the page, it is authorizing us Scott to sign the assurance form with that amount. So we can send that to the state for their application.
So Elijah, this 59,888 that we're saying we're going to match, does that mean in that 1 to 3 ratio, how much money are we getting for that in total? Does that make sense? Did I answer that the right way?
Yeah, so how much is Ohio Mass getting from the feds to, and
Yeah.
we're matching that? Oh, I don't remember the exact amount.
$2 more, two times that amount. right?
That's what I was figuring,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that I was figuring correctly.
You
So-
asked that finance question, Jody went home, yeah, so.
Okay, no problem.
And maybe just do a brief description of what PATH is so that people understand.
Yeah, so PATH is a very important program for the continuum of care. The PATH outreach workers literally go out into the community, find people who are homeless, struggling with mental health issues, and get them mental health services in-house. So NPI has been administering the program for a number of years now. I will say the corrective action plan was really in regards to some staff changes because the PATH workers that we had were phenomenal. But people
They were.
retire, people move on. So we've been bringing new ones in, and I think, we're getting a good mix of them now, providing some more intense training. The state has been offering more training on that, and really kind of what has been the focus, which has been a good focus, is around housing and getting people housed. Less of a focus getting people connected with mental health services, but the state is really pushing for that. So that is one of the things we're addressing in that corrective action plan, how to get these people connected, not just with housing, which obviously MPI does a fantastic job at, but how do we also get them connected to mental health services? So PATH will, we will call PATH, someone will say there's some homeless people in encampment. PATH will go out anywhere in Lucas County, find them and try to engage them and connect them to services.
What's their success rate? Because when I was looking for housing for my son, I never heard of them.
Their success rate's pretty high.
Really? I mean,
I'm just saying from the continuum of care
I actually have
perspective.
benefited from this service.
It's been around a while.
Yeah,
We use it.
I knew nothing about it.
Yeah, it's really focused on outreach.
Okay.
So those, like I said, you drive, you see tents, makeshift tents.
Okay.
They're going there and engaging with them.
Yeah.
So think of, probably some of the most vulnerable people we have in Lucas County who don't have anyone to turn to. They don't spend, all their time at the shelters where people are, getting support. The job is really to go out and find these people to try to get them connected to housing and mental health services.
But, in your current role, employed by the Metro Parks, the connection to PATH might be a very good connection, given that
We're downtown with all the, yeah.
Metro Parks. So let's put you guys together.
and and it is, they are very successful. Again, just from the COC side, Home for Everyone, being on that board, I've had the privilege of seeing Path work. Especially when you have businesses that are really complaining, because that's something that we don't wanna see people arrested, we wanna see them
Sure.
housed, and so that's part of the reason why the emphasis on the housing part has been so strong, is because we felt like until they're housed, we can't stabilize anything else, and so it's really, part of the strategic plan for the Home for Everyone's, continuum of care.
Any other questions?
So if you have somebody who is looking for help, who needs housing and mental health, do you contact MPI?
Homeless needs housing.
Homeless, they're homeless. Homeless.
Yeah, the chronically homeless
They
is really the,
contact MPI?
Yep, or, it's interesting,
Which
the
chronic?
system has evolved, because there's an email list that goes out to a number of providers where someone, it's like encampment at something, and, they'll say there's an encampment at this address, and MPI, the path workers will get it, and they will make attempts to go out. Now, obviously, like, someone might not be there, so they have to go out a number of times, or they have to spend some time really engaging some of these people, but, really, that, I can't stress enough that this is one of those services, it isn't like, we're here, come to us. It's, hey, can you guys go out to this address? Can you go out to this park? Can you go look for this person? And that's their role in the system.
So we'll just also recognize Miss Alex, who supervises the program. Hopefully you can stick around after our meeting, and if somebody wants to get your contact information, we can connect you.
Need a motion?
Yes, do motion to approve.
second,
Thank you. Question?
Dr. Sada? Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Harding?
Yes.
Dr. Elhad? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Major White? Yes.
Friedman.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's okay.
You need-
Okay. Oh, I see, so we don't have to say it since we made the motion?
Oh, no, they will.
No, they still get.
That's okay.
I just wanna make sure.
You're welcome.
All right, Steve is gonna talk about Danny's place of fire.
Good afternoon, everyone. On the bottom of page 32 of your packet is a proposed motion for your consideration. Sky, I'll speak up. On the bottom of page 32 of your packet is a proposed motion for your consideration. 32, yes. Near the bottom, yeah. near the back. The following motion is presented to the Board of Trustees for consideration. The Mental Health Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves allocating $39,429 to ABC Warehouse for equipment purchase and authorizes its executive director to execute a contract with ABC Warehouse to that effect. Please, if you have any questions or background, I was told brevity is the big piece here, so.
Scott said that.
And I know everyone knows about. Pretty well.
I wanna know what type of equipment purchase. Just says equipment price. Brief, all right.
Essentially, for Danny's place, this is a lot of the mechanical components, washers, dryers, to outfit a kitchen, to outfit a
Okay.
commercial kitchen, laundry room, those type of things. Refrigerators, washers, dryers.
Any other questions?
Brief, all right.
So
Motion
moved.
to-
Second. Second. That's a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Ms. Banks. Yes. Ms. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown. Ms. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Dr. Elham. Yes. Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Harding,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Dr. Sadat. Leader White. Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right.
Now comes the moment you guys have all been waiting for, right? My director's report. And unlike Mr. Spinelli, who was following directives, this will not be brief.
Okay.
Um, So let me start with everybody's favorite topic right now, the biennial budget. I went down to Columbus at the end of February and provided proponent testimony in favor of House Bill 96. Essentially what that means is we were mostly in favor of the things that were in the budget related to Ohio Mouse. There's some good things in there. Just high level, the current first draft of the House amendments were due on Friday,
This past Friday?
this past Friday.
Okay.
We will see a sub-bill. It's scheduled to be released on April 1st. That's, the way the House does things. The budget was broken up into pieces and parts and assigned to different committees. Those committees have all held hearings, and recommendations from those committees will be brought back into a sub-bill that will then be brought to the full body for approval. That sub-bill will then be passed at some point, scheduled for April 9th. That's when the Senate will have its, I guess, go at the sub-bill. Senate has already started its testimony. That's a little easier in the Senate because there's only a few committees and there's only 50 people in the Senate compared to the House where there's so there's a lot more to go on the budget. Still largely in favor of what's in it related to Ohio Moss, with one exception, which I brought up in my testimony, and we didn't get anybody to bite on the comments I was making. And that exception is Medicaid expansion. Just kind of perspective. In fiscal year 23, our information that our IT people were able to run showed that 6,224 people, unique individuals, received a behavioral health service through one of our contract agencies that identified as a group 8, which is the Medicaid expansion population. The reimbursement to those agencies from the state for providing those services was $13.6 million.
For how many people?
6,224. Now that's fiscal year 23 numbers. So we're 8 months into fiscal year, almost 9 months into fiscal year 25. I don't have 24 numbers. You know why? Because Medicaid killed our feed in May, so I don't have a full data set. They just didn't kill our feed, they killed all Lawrence feed. So if you guys are listening. Anyway, what we want to state about that is, if expansion were to be eliminated, all of those people, that 6,224, would immediately become eligible under the board's current eligibility rules for treatment services. Now, we struggled last year just increasing our amount by 1.5 million-ish. There is little likelihood that we would be able to absorb what is at a minimum 13.6 million. And we, by the way, we do know that that the numbers of folks that we paid for from 24 compared to 23 jumped 28%. Now, if that translated into a similar expansion of Medicaid, probably not. You know, similar percentage of Medicaid expansion, probably not. But we do know there's more growth. And let's remember, it's only that number only represents the agencies we contract with. There's a whole group of providers in our community that are serving Medicaid expansion folks that would no longer be able to do that once that would go away, which would then drive those folks to our contracted agencies. So there's a dynamic here that is very concerning.
Do we set those numbers or are those numbers set for us?
It's 2,000.
In other words, you said we would be responsible.
Current contract says it.
Okay, so we have some input in that. It's not statutorily assigned.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Our current contract language would say that anybody below 250% of poverty and below, which this population clearly would be, and is a resident of Lucas County, would qualify for board-funded treatment services. So that's just the, that's just kind of like the high level overview. What we do know, clearly we would not be able to absorb 13 million-ish or more than that. We would also, given that treatment access is a high priority for us, remember, crisis, treatment, mental health, housing, some of our highest priorities. We know that we would have to make huge systemic changes, not just in accessibility or eligibility, benefits packages, ripple effect through the system, in order to attempt to meet some of the need. And even then, we really would not be able to meet everything that we know is needed at this point. Not trying to cause chaos or concern, but I do feel a need that we all are aware of what's going on. Linda kind of alluded to this last month, right? It's a little bit clearer this month. Within the governor's budget, there is a proposal that what we're defining as an automatic trigger to eliminate Medicaid expansion. If the federal reimbursement rate, which they identify as FMAP, don't ask me what it stands for, but that's what they call it, drops below the current reimbursement rate of 90%.
Yeah, I'm like trying to follow that. Thank
So Medicaid expansion and regular Medicaid is a federal-state collaboration. A portion of it is paid by the feds, and then a portion of it is paid by the state. For the expansion population, the feds pay 90%, the state pays 10%. The trigger is if the Fed rate drops below 90%, the state of Ohio will eliminate Medicaid expansion. That's the trigger. So now let me connect the dots for you. So that's, let me rephrase because I want to be clear, because I don't want people walking out of here saying Medicaid expansion's dead. This is what's proposed in the House budget as we know it now. If it comes out of the House budget like this, my personal feeling is it's highly likely, but we won't know until we know. Now, if it still has to go through the Senate and get approved, and we don't know we don't know that yet. What we do know is, I believe last biennium, this same trigger was in the state budget when it came out of the House and the Senate removed it. So there's a lot of conversations that still need to be had here. But now let's take a look at what's happening at the federal level. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on there, but the one that we're related to this conversation is that while the continuing resolution largely funded expansion through September, the Department of Health and Human Services, which funds Medicaid, has been identified to be reduced by $7.5 billion. Now they have $217 billion budget, and it's only 6%. But popular thinking amongst people that know a lot more about federal funding than I do would suggest that there is little that HHS could do to cut that large of amount without touching Medicaid. We also know that while we've heard, I'm choosing my words wisely here now, while we've heard folks in Washington say that it's not their plan to cut Medicaid, I haven't seen where they have included that same discussion with the expansion population. There's this disconnect between ACA, Accountable Care Act, expansion population, and Medicaid. So it's not clear if they're talking about the whole group or these two groups differently. If the feds would reduce the FMAP down below the 90%, or provide money that is less than what's coming in here, where the state would not be able to maintain its 10% match, that would likely trigger the elimination of Medicaid, should it make its way all the way through. And of course, the budget, Ohio budget, will be completed for the end of September, but we also know that they don't have to wait till the end of September to make some of these changes at the federal level.
So it would eliminate
Medicaid
expansion,
Group
not
8.
Medicaid. Okay,
Group 8.
okay.
Right, the expansion population. Assuming that it stays throughout, the governor signs it, that automatic trigger comes in. If the state identifies that they have to pay 11% of the Group 8 claims, then that would trigger elimination. Now, I told you that I did testimony. Yes, ma'am.
A quick question, could you explain the expansion population?
So sure, the easiest way to identify it is prior to the expansion population being enacted, there were essentially two eligibility requirements. One is 100% of poverty and below, and a disability. So they call that age blind disabled, and then there were certain offsets for women of childbearing age and et cetera. There were a number of different things, but that's the easiest way to identify it. So expansion removed the disability evaluation and simply went to a straight financial eligibility criteria and upped it to 138% of poverty. So from 138% of poverty to 100% of poverty
Thank you.
is largely considered the expansion population. But we also know that goes below 100 if you weren't identified with a disability. And by the way, just so we're all clear, under the previous rules, alcohol and drug addiction was not considered a disability. So AOD was not part of a Medicaid coverage unless you had some other co-occurring disability readily identifiable. The value of the expansion expansion in systems at the local level are, think about who largely benefited from expansion. Single males who had less than 138% of poverty. They were able to get not only behavioral health care, but also health care. And let's remember, behavioral health care is a sliver of the expenses related to treating those individuals in Group A. The vast expenses are on the healthcare side. But we only deal here with our little bit of $13.6 million range. So there's a lot more to come. Frankly, I cannot have a conversation without, at the state level without talking about this. It's permeates literally every conversation. We are working internally to identify, okay, a grander strategy. If we start to sense that, it's evident, we may choose to advance our new strategic planning efforts, more readily than waiting till midsummer or something like that. We're going to have community meetings. We're going to have to engage the providers. We're going to have to do a whole bunch of things. But let's be clear. If it goes away, the system as we know it, and many systems as we know it, not just ours, will change significantly. And it won't change for the better. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an idea, do you have an idea of the number of people that constitute the expansion?
In Ohio?
In Ohio.
700,000.
And so all of those people would then drop out of not just our system, but the healthcare system of our hospitals, everybody who offers any benefit of healthcare, which then means as those people can't pay, then and can't get served, then those people who have been serving those numbers no longer are needed in their employment, who then become unemployed, and so that the numbers within the 100% of poverty level are likely to increase just by the ripple effect and the unintended consequences, which then increases everything else, including crime, and which then impacts mental health of not just the people engaging in the crime, but in their families, et cetera, et cetera.
The individuals in our community that would likely lose benefits are not moving out of our community. As their illnesses progress, it's reasonable to think that we'll see them in our jails, our emergency rooms, and our emergency shelters. Rural hospitals will likely close because they have a greater percentage of Medicaid. We were talking with the local hospital right now, local hospital system yesterday, who was discussing the impact on even, hospital here. And, you know, less reimbursement means a whole lot of bad things for hospitals. So, yeah, it's concerning.
And physicians and people going into those industries, into those professions.
And less access because some of the systems grow. Let's just say in Lucas County, you know, we contract with 20 different certified providers, but there's really more like 75 or 80. Some of those budgets, some of their budgets are predicated on a expansion population, serving an expansion population. Their hard costs will increase, and you won't have the expansion, or you won't have the Medicaid population to offset that. So their business models are gonna implode as well, likely. So there's a huge ripple effect, and while I don't wanna cause a panic,
It is a
Yeah,
panic.
we need-
Yeah.
we need to be
you're at a
prepared.
point where advocacy, when I send things out, matter. Yes, ma'am.
Clients I work with are there's probation who need treatment. Also, when we were talking to you, I went to a social function over the weekend and was warned by both my husband and daughter to keep your mouth shut. It's a social event, and the person there that I needed to, I kind of avoided him, and finally he came up to me and I couldn't help it. He did come back and talk to me later. And I think he knows, but does it help? When you gave your spiel, did anybody, what was their reaction?
So I did testimony as my state association CEO, and I did a joint testimony in front of the Children and Human Services Committee or something like that. And I mentioned some of these numbers, and I said, and if you'd like to have a conversation about what could potentially be done to, you know, to offset this, please ask me in the question and answer period. And they did not.
Are the little counties like Adamsport and the different Adams, are they coming up with any numbers too, to get to their representatives?
We are all working, you know, we're working as a state association. There's a huge coalition across the state of virtually any healthcare providers you can talk to, their state associations. They're gearing up. Managed care organizations are in there as well. There's a lot going on in this space. So we're not at the finish line yet, but you know, we went through this same conversation, a little bit different, but very similar feel when we were conversing about if Ohio would become an expansion state. So, and I did testimony to the full Senate committee in 2014 when we passed this as well. So the argument and the conversation is eerily familiar.
So do you believe that advocacy could have a significant impact?
I think advocacy beyond the traditional folks that we communicate with is absolutely necessary. For instance, I was with Congresswoman Capter yesterday, and we were talking about this. She knows. She don't need the letters. She don't need it's the people beyond that, you know, the other Ohio delegates, things of that nature. Yes, ma'am.
I think, personally, I think we have the obligation to inform our family members, our neighbors, our congregants, because a lot of this is slipping under the radar. And there are in my personal opinion, far too many people who think, well, okay if it's happening to you. It's okay if it's happening to you. It's not gonna happen to me. People need to understand that while it may not directly impact you, it is going to impact you. Because when crime rises, it's gonna impact you. Because they're not always gonna stay in my neighborhood. Eventually, the crime's gonna get to your neighborhood. And when a child is raised in a home with a parent suffering from chronic depression and mental illness, if you think it doesn't reach that child, that's crazy. It absolutely impacts that child, who then grows up and has his own children that watch them go through. So it's going to impact everybody, and I think there's an onus on all of us. I mean, I realize that you sometimes can't convince people who don't want to hear it, but I still think there's a certain level of obligation to plant the seed and let it savor and grow over in their private quiet.
Can you email some of those figures?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I have a whole computer full of,
Since I forgot that.
Scott, if there's ever
sure, yeah, I have all kind of stuff.
an opportunity where we as a board could collectively go down and testify or whatever, I mean, if, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of grasping because I'm like, action is something that has to happen and I don't know what the right action is.
So there's always opportunities, even if, individual testimony is, I mean, I've done individual testimony when I wasn't associated with anything. That can be a laborious process just because you don't have the stature of an association behind you to kind of carry you through it and all that.
Right.
I've done it enough that I kind of know how all that works, but, something like expansion is gonna be 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of, you'll have 120, 130 people do a testimony at a minimum in various committees, midnight kind of thing. And it doesn't dissuade you from doing it, but it is a long day. There's a reason they made those benches in the State House wood. So, but there's going to be plenty of opportunity for additional discussion, and we will need to ramp it up across not just us but everybody. So let me move on. We knew this was going to be a big one. That's why I brought it up first, because I knew that there was quite a bit that we needed to talk about. But there's a few more legislative pieces that just wanted to touch on real quick. There's also something called House Bill 58 that was introduced. It will create a more robust oversight role for our boards in relation to recovery housing. It will authorize us and require us to do annual performance inspections, issue certificates of need for new housing coming in, also make it a criminal offense for recovery housing operators that would operate outside of the site certification and licensure process. We see a lot of these recovery housing in our community. I think we have a pretty good group of recovery house providers, but there are communities around the state that call themselves recovery housing, and for lack of a better term, simply are what we used to call flop houses, where there's no regulation, there's no supervision, there's no recovery principles. People just come and go as they want. They're nuisance to the neighborhoods, things like that. And state law now requires everybody that operates a recovery house to be licensed and certified. So there's some, that was just introduced. House Bill 28 was also just reintroduced. It was introduced in the 135th legislator, whatever it is. So this is 136 now, and that's been reintroduced. And this is a bit more concerning for us as well, although it doesn't really impact us today, right now. House Bill 28 is the bill that was introduced to eliminate the ability to seek replacement property tax levies. So it would whittle your choices down to two options: new or renewal. So, like I said, it doesn't impact us right now, but it could in 28. It limits our options. It limits the county commissioner's options of what they would hope to approve. And the thought being is that a replacement levy is not transparent to the voters. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think our voters are very smart. They can figure out the difference between a replacement, a renewal, and a new. And so the options would be, for instance, and I'm just giving this as an example. If we were to go in 28 and we decided we wanted to do a replacement, that would no longer be available to us. So you could do a 1 mil renewal with a 0.5 new, or you could do a 1.25 new, or whatever combination of that would look like.
And the confusion would probably come in, the voter is gonna have to vote on two separate issues,
Yes.
the renewal and then the new. So
Or-
we'd have to get a yes and a yes. Okay, I
So,
just wanna make sure I was tracking along.
so there's a lot of, from what we're hearing, there is a lot of support for this to pass, and it very well might be passed.
That's
So, not trying to be doom and gloom, but there are a few things going on. And then there's Senate Bill 138 that was just introduced by Senator Johnson. This modifies our, the Alcohol and Drug and Mental Health Board's authorizing legislation, which we call 340. It does a number of things, but the one thing it does do is it eliminates the 120-day notice process. So those things that we were trying to advocate for in Senate Bill 105 last year have been carried over into this legislation, and is largely seen as very positive. The changes that we have made are in cooperation with other systems representative. So, you know, we had some opponents to our 105. We won't have as many as we have in the 138. I am sure I will go down and testify in support of this, given our history in 2021. So that's largely seen as some positive things, and there's a few other cleanup things in there that we like. Then I just wanted to give you two other brief updates. You are aware that agencies receive their 120-day notices. They have 60 days from that date of March 1st to appeal locally, and another 60 days to appeal to the state. Of the 12 notices that were sent, we've received written appeals from 6 agencies. Meetings with those 6 entities either have occurred or will occur by the end of next week. They will be notified of the board staff recommendations, and then depending upon how they respond, they will either need to decide to accept the recommendation, which will then be presented to you as a unilateral agreement, not unilateral, like, bilateral agreement, or ask for board to board if they so choose, where they come in and they talk, or just not respond at all. At that point, there would be, that appeal would be dead as well. So it would never come back to you guys. So if there are board-to-board meetings, and and has timing, how timing allows it, we'll either have some of those meetings at the April P&O, or the April board meeting.
April's gonna be just-
All our local decisions have to be completed by April 30th. So that kind of just lays out the structure a bit for how we're proceeding. Then, moving on, for those of you on the executive and nominating committee, I will be sending out a calendar invite for April 8th, May 13th, and June 10th meetings. I want to get them on the calendar. We are going to need to hold at least two of those dates. I don't know which two they are right now.
What'd you say?
There will be April 8th, May 13th, and June 10th. I will send out calendar invites to everybody so you can just hit yes. I want to get the hold on your calendar. We may end up canceling one of them, but I can't tell you which one yet. Probably isn't going to be the June meeting. Just letting you know now, we have a number of things that need to get in front of the executive and nominating committee, including nominations of committee chair, vice chair, and officers for the 26-27 round, as well as our culture of quality certification from the Ohio Association of County Behavioral Health Authorities expires in September of 25. And so we have a whole bunch of policies that need to be processed through the executive and nominating committee, as well as this, generally the planning and oversight committee as well. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done. But my staff are up to the challenge. So that concludes my director's report. Yes, ma'am.
With regard to the additional and/or new obligations of this board with respect to recovery housing, is that something the state is providing us the funds to do, or are those funds coming from someplace, or do we have to divert other funds to fulfill those duties and obligations?
So we won't know the true costs of that, but there is a billing mechanism built into the permit fees for recovery housing, or I use permit fees, but that's not, it's an application fee of some kind that they'll carve out for reimbursement to the boards or dedication to the boards. But will it require a full-time position or a half-time position or a quarter position? I don't know. As far as the number of recovery houses that we actually have in Lucas County, any thoughts? 10, 15? Remember, group 20? Charlotta Slaughter, by the way. That's our manager of high rights and recovery. Housing. There you go. So, you know, it's a minimal amount, but depending upon what you get into, it could blossom very fast. And it doesn't include adult care facilities. They have their own thing, in which we have, I think, near 100 of those in Lucas County. that's my director's report.
Yeah, thank you.
Open session.
Go ahead, Roger.
Quite a bit going on at One Government Center. I will be brief. The county commissioners are all over the place with their meetings. Last week's meeting was rescheduled, the meeting before that. They have 3 upcoming meetings they've canceled, and 2 of them they're going to reschedule, but they're kind of all over the map. I'm not sure why. They have published when their board meetings are, but yeah, they're moving around and they're going into more executive sessions. I don't know if it's union contracts or what, but yeah, a lot going on. I attended that fascinating meeting last week. This was the public hearing for the 10-mile Creek maintenance project. Now this is all 3 of the county commissioners are in a conflict of interest situation, so they have to swear in some new county commissioners just to hear this. Basically, it was a room packed with grouchy senior citizens that are very unhappy that their property taxes keep going up. I thought the county engineer did a great job. Said, you know, the emerald ash borer has been eating all of our trees. They fall into this creek and they cause the log jams. He had pictures and everything. And now's the time for some very expensive maintenance work. The crowd didn't see it that way. They were shouting at it. You don't know what you're talking about. One gentleman testified that the county should reimburse every homeowner $1,000 for every tree they need to cut down. I don't think that's going to happen. Don't hold your breath waiting for that check to arrive in the mail. But it was very clear to me, a lot of angry taxpayers out there, and that's going to get worse before it gets better. They did recognize a former mental health board member. They recognized Francine Lawrence this morning. We're going back 40 years, but they did talk about she used to serve on this board. She was known for keeping the board on agenda. I mean, she would say, we're going to spend 5 minutes on this, and at the 5-minute mark, she would cut off whoever was talking and go right to the next item. Behind her back, they called her Queen Francine. I mean, you know, because of our long association with the Federation of Teachers, they used to joke, if you attend a mental health board meeting, you can't chew gum unless you brought enough for everybody. But it was nice seeing her recognized this morning. Let's talk about tobacco shops. Last week, if I can remember, there were 4 of them on the agenda at the Plan Commission. One guy didn't show up, so they'll hear him next month. 1 on Detroit was turned down. 2 will be approved. One of them is right across the street from one that they approved last month, if I can remember correctly. There's one on the north side of Glendale, that's 3026, and then now they're going to approve one on the south side at 3015. I was asking, one of them goes before city council tomorrow. I was asking city council members, do you know how close these places are? They didn't know. And I said, you really need to have a discussion about this. I understand from Todd Gibbons of the Plan Commission, they're coming up with a plan, but they're all over the place. And most of them are going to be approved. Obviously, I wanted to talk about rescue this old building. It couldn't have gone any better last week. They spent maybe 10 minutes total for this new Assurance Plus Incorporated, whatever they're calling themselves, they're going to take over. The Plan Commission didn't ask any questions. They really didn't. When it came time for the public to speak, I kind of went up there. I felt like I was an inconvenience. I said, hey guys, you're going to put 52 beds on one floor. And they backed off that. They said, no, it's going to be 16 on 3 different floors. My math says that's 48. But it's just the Plan Commission didn't ask much of anything. This is on the fast track. By way of comparison, the health facility last month at 815 Navarre. Well, nobody called into the county, nobody called into the Plan Commission. Nobody came to the meeting. They had a public hearing. Nobody showed up, so they ordered them, go back, have a second public meeting with the neighborhood, and come back in 60 days. They're definitely holding that up. But this is on the fast track. It will be heard at City Council, I believe, on April the 16th. It certainly looks like it's going to pass. There are any number of ways it's going to affect our system. One of them is where are they going to get their employees from? I think they'll be taking them from our contract agencies. Some of them might be hard to replace. But this is on the fast track. The paper report, there will be a public meeting on Thursday night. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend that. That's also about the time that they're going to have the safety committee at City Council, the opioid settlement, and I believe they'll have representatives from Zeph Center and Harbor and the Children's Services Board to talk about that. That's certainly good news. And so that's a very brief description of the very busy day that's going on at One Government Center. Thank you.
You can see your, okay. Just to give you guys an idea, it stands for Kinship and Adoption Navigator. And this program, if you know of anyone who has a child in their home, or a child, whether, you know, if it's kinship, which can be either, you know, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, or even a neighbor, or somebody that's taken in a child that isn't their own, this is free, okay? It's free. It actually is a DCY program. And we actually are in the Ohio Revised Code. It's like 5101 or something like that. But basically, you know, the family, they've taken a child, whoever, they call in, and, you know, we work with them to help them. I mean, and if we can't connect them to resources, you know, we've got money. Matter of fact, we approved the $10,000 to fix a roof. And so we do what we can, you know, to help these families because kinship is so important. You know, we really are trying to keep the kids, you know, in the home. Right now, there are approximately 239,000 kids just in the state of Ohio in kinship care. So we serve all 88 counties. And so I just want to make you guys aware, if you're not aware, because, you know, we actually get a lot of calls out of Lucas County, so there are people that are aware. But there were just some misconceptions out there that you had to qualify, like with Medicaid, or you had this. It doesn't matter if you have no income or if you make $200,000. It doesn't matter. Our motto is we believe families. So if you call up, you've taken this kid in, or kids, however, we are going to help you. There's, like I said, the only thing that you have to do with the kids, you know, they're under 18 and they're in your home. You know, they have to be in your care. And if you get a chance, you can check out our website, our parent website, and under Connect. We also do have YNN, which is our Youth Navigator Network, which helps those kids that are aging out of foster care. Again, free, or helping them with tuition, all kinds of things. So I just wanted to bring it to awareness because there's so many good things I feel like, you know, that we're doing, and it's free. And all they gotta do is call. And if you have questions, just ask me. But if you want brochures, I got those too. So I just wanted to share with you guys. Thank you. It doesn't matter what the reason is, as long as, like for example, you know, it doesn't even matter. You know, somebody, yeah, if the parents are incarcerated and somebody's taking them in, that's fine. You know, we have families whose parents passed away, or they brought in from other states, or, you know, the mom says, hey, can you watch my kids? And 3 weeks later, she still hasn't shown back up. You know, it doesn't matter. They do not have to be in the system either. It can be formal or informal. So they do not have to be part of, you know, working, yeah, they do not have to be, yeah, it could be, it can be adoption units to work with, it can be kinship,